Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let us observe a minute's prayerful silence for all those who touched the lotus feet of the Lord. हमसे न देखा जाए बर्बादियों का समा, उजड़ी हुई बस्ती में ये तड़प रहे इंसान, इन्हें हम याद दिलाए वो सबक प्यार का, बन जाए गुलशन फिर से, कांटों भरी दुनिया एक तू ही भरोसा। हे ईश्वर या अल्लाह ये पुकार सुन ले, हे ईश्वर या अल्लाह हे दाता. You must be wondering, ladies and gentlemen, as to why Dr. Purnima Kulkarni is in such a melancholy mood. Why is she so morose? What is the reason behind her despondency? Well, since morning, I have been thinking of people who were martyred in the 26/11 attacks. I've been thinking of Hemant Karkare, who was the chief of anti-terrorist squad during 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. I've been thinking of Ashok Kamte, the additional commissioner who was martyred in the 26/11 attacks. I've been thinking of Major Sandeep Unnikrishnan, who too touched the lotus feet of the Lord during the 26/11 attacks. I've been thinking of Vishnu Dattaram Zende, the announcer, the railway announcer at Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus, Mumbai, who kept on making announcements one after the other, only to rescue the lives of people. I have been thinking of Chotu Chaiwala, who was running helter-skelter to help people. I've been thinking of Qazi Zakir Hussain, the cook who adopted the baby Mosh, Russian baby, who lost her parents, unfortunately, in the 26/11 attacks. I've been thinking of Karambir Singh Kang, the general manager of Taj Hotel, who lost his entire family in the 26/11 attacks. Dear people, my heart cries, and a drowsy numbness pains my senses as I recall what happened in Mumbai on the 26th of November 2008. And today, in my talk show, Boggling Conversations, we are proud, honored, and privileged to have Ms. Vinita Deshmukh, the award-winning journalist of independent India. Vinita ji, it is our honor, it is our privilege to have you on Boggling Conversations today. I'm proud to tell the viewers that you are a recipient of Acharya Atre Award, Chameli Devi Jain Award for your investigative journalism. You are such a figure to reckon with. What a lady, what a woman of titanic intellect. Privileged to have you, Vinita ji, privileged to have you on Boggling Conversations. So how is the pandemic treating you?
Well, the pandemic has not personally attacked me as such, but the pandemic being a huge public emergency, public health emergency of catastrophic proportions, all of us are in it. You know, we know all our dear and near ones who are either sick because of the disease or they have lost their lives. And it's just happening everywhere around us in every state of this country. So obviously, you know, that this pandemic has touched everybody in a very sober way, in a very gloomy way. You know, some brave ones have come ahead to help the ones in need, whether it be oxygen, hospital bed, ICU bed, ambulances, and others like me have been really praying or writing about it, you know. So each one of us, I think as a community, we are together involved in this pandemic in one way or the other. And this pandemic has, in a sense, made the entire nation involved in a good or bad way. The bad governance or the governance that needs to strategize at a lightning speed, the community, the individuals who need to look after their personal safety by using masks, not going out if it's not required, and thereby helping the community to break the chain. So, as a nation, we just cannot get off this disease. Even if it doesn't personally attack you, you're personally involved with it. So, that's the story. There's no other story today in the world, and especially in our country. COVID is the only story, whether you're a journalist or not.
Ji, Vinita ji, you've authored a book called The Last Bullet. So how did that happen, and how did you get in touch with Mrs. Kamte?
Yeah, so I have co-authored the book. I've scripted the book for
Yes.
her. So it so happened that I was the editor of Intelligent Pune at the time when the 26/11 attacks happened. And so naturally, you always go for a story that is news. And then, I just thought that I should get in touch with Vinita Kamte to actually do a
Yes.
cover story for my tabloid. And when I started talking to her for seeking an appointment, the story that she told me seemed absolutely stunning and amazing. In the sense that there was so much lacunae, that she was so, distressed about the way her husband, who was an excellent IPS officer and could use the AK-47 rifles in his fraternity, could just simply die just like that. So we sat over a cup of coffee, and after I interviewed her, I just told her, you know what? I'll write an article, of course, for Intelligent Pune, but this story needs much more. It needs
Correct.
to be, put into a book, and that's because she had used the Right to Information Act, bravely
Yes.
to procure
Yes.
all the call log records which were on the ground zero between the South Control, Mumbai South Control room and the officers and other personnel on the field. So she had a treasure of information from where she
Correct.
and her twin sister could analyze exactly the chronology of why these three officers were killed, and that was like
Okay.
something which needed to be told. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Vinita ji, you've been very, very passionate about right to information, and you've been writing prolifically on right to information. So, how do you think the public, the media, or the people, the citizens can apply right to information in this pandemic situation? Because
Yeah.
people
So
want to know a lot of things. People want to, and they are at sea. So, how do they use right to information as far as pandemic is concerned?
yeah, so the Right to Information Act, it has been implemented so that there is transparency in the governance of the government, and particularly when it is of the larger public interest. Now, this pandemic is a public interest of a huge, large proportion, and every individual would like to know the status of the vaccine shots, when are they coming, from where are they coming, what about the hospital beds, what about the government which said that first the 30 crore health workers and allied workers and professionals are going to get it. So which is the list of that 30 crore, how was this vaccination disseminated? So these are the questions that you and me want to ask. However, over the last 10 to 12 months, RTR actives and users have, asked these very questions and much more, sought information under the RTI Act to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, to the Union Health Minister, to the public authorities that are concerned. However, all the queries are just stonewalled. They just use the exemption clause under Section 8, in which they say this is an official secret, and so sorry, we cannot give you the information. And the government has just not been able to put it on its website all the truth that we want to know. And therefore, what you're saying is right, that we all need to get information. But unfortunately, there is a huge opaqueness, there's a secrecy, and we, the public, just don't know what exactly is the government doing, except from some bits and pieces of news items that keep rolling in. The RTI Act is just been, frozen when it comes to queries under this pandemic. And that is, I think, the biggest tragedy of our nation, because we just don't know what's happening in an issue which directly affects me. If I don't get vaccination, it's going to affect me. If my brother doesn't get a bed, it's going to affect just everybody. It's going to affect, but we just don't know what's happening. That's the tragedy.
Absolutely. It's a catastrophic
And
situation. Yes.
And
And
just last week, the Madras High Court has given a very stern order that the Central Information Commissioner must immediately form a panel and work 3 to 4 hours daily to ensure that all the RTI information regarding the pandemic is answered promptly. It's just last week. But they just like stonewall that too. So that's the tragedy.
I understand, Vinita, investigative journalism. So, did you ever ask for Y security or Z security? Because you've worked on so many life-threatening cases. So, did you ever ask for security while dealing with such complex cases?
That is just a mindset, or in the mind of people, that if you just write some stories, I want to be shot dead. It doesn't happen like that. Because see, journalism
Right.
is not about taking on people and getting personal with them.
Right.
That's when animosity comes in. But
Yes.
journalism is a very responsible field, wherein we go by the official documents, we go by
Yes.
the government which has announced certain rules, regulation, laws that it is going to implement. We go by
Correct.
the official records of the permission. For example, the Dow chemical investigations, which I did over a period of 10 months through the right to information, in which I
Yes.
procured documents from the Pollution Control Board, from the Industrial Development Corporation of Maharashtra, and I found
Correct.
that the government had given permission only for research center. However, they were all set to have probably a pesticide plant, a manufacturing plant. So you see, when the documents are there, and fortunately, I'm staying in a progressive state like Maharashtra, where there's a
Correct.
freedom for journalists. So I always live by G category. That is God.
Correct.
God helps you if you are honest, if you go by the truth, if you go by the certified documents that the government has given, and write about it. So there's no question of trying to just get some security. Why do you need security? Soldiers die, right? So it doesn't matter if you're going to die while you're pursuing the truth, while you're trying to be the ears and eyes of the society, where you're being alert, you're the antenna, and telling the people what is the government doing wrong. We are telling truth to the power. We are taking on the powerful and demanding, because this is a democracy, and
Yes.
they are not our lords. We are the lords, and they are our servants. They are serving us, be it from the prime minister till down to the gram panchayat officer. Okay, so
Correct.
it is through our taxpayers money and through the trust we have reposed on them, that they are ruling us, because we have trust in them. That's why we elected them. So this is a very frivolous kind of a mindset. If any journalist has that he needs protection, because then you can leave journalism. It's very simple. Yeah.
If you're not gutsy and if you are not brave, if you're not a valiant fighter, then quit journalism, because then this
Yeah.
field is not meant for you. So
Yes.
there are a lot of students, a lot of people who want to carve a niche for themselves in the field of journalism, Vinita ji. So what would you suggest? What would be your advice to them? What are the essentials of journalism? Because I don't think any degree in mass communication or journalism makes you a journalist, because working in the field is quite different from acquiring a degree. So how would you guide people who are all set to carve a niche for themselves.
Okay. So, when I was a young journalist in the Indian Express, I had broken a very important story. And I came
Okay.
that day to the office pretty excited, that my story was like read so much, and our editors in the Indian Express, they all had these transparent cabins. There was no closed cabins, so he could see what the reporters are doing. So when he kind of overheard, he called me over. And he's told me, what are you so excited about? I said, no, the story is like being appreciated. He's saying, remember one thing, you are a journalist. And like the newspaper that becomes a raddi after 24 hours, your story is a raddi. So every day you have to prove yourself. So even if I am in this field for 33 years, there's nothing like carving a niche for yourself. Every day you have to bring the story to the people, the truth to the people, and it's a thankless job. When I give lectures in mass communication colleges, I always tell the youngsters this, that it is a journalist is like a housewife. Housewife, she makes a beautiful Sunday, beautiful Sunday feast for her family, spread a beautiful spread. And then the next day, she makes chawal and dal. And the children will say, oh, what is this rubbish food you've given? Without, even appreciating or remembering that 24 hours before, she'd actually, spend so much time giving a beautiful meal. And so it is in journalism. You just got to work every day without, you get brickbats, but when you get bouquets, you just don't have to be happy about it. So any young journalist who's coming to this field needs to have a certain attitude. It is like you said, yeah, journalism degree is not everything. Some people think that if their vocabulary in English is good, or whichever regional language they want to pursue their journalism in, that makes them a journalist. No, what makes you a journalist is the uh, you know fire in the belly to get after a story which is uncomfortable to the establishment. When I say establishment, to any public office, to any officer, to any way, it could be a police commissioner too, that, because a citizen has met with injustice, and you as a journalist professional are trying to put the story, not a biased one. You have to give the story both sides, of course, but as you
Absolutely.
go through the story, you find that there is something, if the government is hiding, then you just have to interpret, get more documents, get the truth, and come up to it. So you have to have the fire in the belly. You cannot be prejudiced. Like, you cannot say, for example, Mr. Suresh Kalmari is corrupt and just go on writing against him. No, when
Correct.
you go for the story to him, you have to go with an open mind. Maybe he has done some great work and you need to write about it, right? So you have to go with an open mind, and you have
Open.
to be just humble. You cannot have a chip on your shoulder that you have a visiting card of Indian Express, of Times of India, and that you are a very special person. No, today the journalist is not a special person, because if you go to Twitter, in the social media, young journalists have started their own video news channels, and they speak the truth. There is this young boy called Sunil Meghani who has covered the farmers protest. Now he's covering the crematoriums and hospitals in Delhi. He is doing just fantastic work, more than what an Indian Express or a Times of India journalist would do. So that's what you need. And you should not think about how much I'm going to be paid. When I started my career, I was like paid 300 rupees a month. All right. And, I kept on writing. And of course, now you have, why not? You should get a good remuneration. But that should not be the whole aim as to why you're working in a certain newspaper.
Difference between There is a lot of difference between a columnist and and a journalist. People do get confused between these two terminologies, but
No,
I
no,
guess
no.
there's a lot of difference.
Uh, no, it's like this, that we all are journalists, even if you're columnists. It's just that when, there is a news reporting, all right, which has to be
Mhm.
done as per the happening, whether it's an air crash or any other. So in there, you do
Mhm.
not give any interpretation, right? You write
Correct.
the story as it is, bring home the facts for the reader to understand what the issue is about. Then a senior journalist who has perhaps done 2 decades in aviation journalism, or in maybe any other political journalism. So he
Yes.
writes a column. So
Yes.
he like becomes your opinion maker, not
Yes.
because
Yes.
he has got a soul and head, but
Mm.
with his experience, his contacts, his networking, his knowledge that he has gained, he can just give you the story in a
An
perspective.
opinion,
So yeah,
his
so
perspective.
columnist is also a journalist, but a very
Yes.
senior one. Yeah, who's well
Okay.
respected. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for clarifying that particular doubt, Vinita ji. Now, what are the challenges? Because we are on boggling conversations, and the topic is challenges of being a dauntless journalist, a fearless journalist. And I think you've always been a fearless journalist. But what are the challenges that you faced?
You know, in journalism, you face challenge every day, because
Right.
the rule is that no individual is can is it's not mandatory for any individual to give you information, but
Right.
it is mandatory for the journalist to snatch that information. So you
Mm.
remember, so you can understand the challenge. Like, even if I go to a government office and ask a certain question to an officer, he may resist, though as a public servant he's supposed to tell us, but he doesn't. But the art of using your uh,
Extracting information. Yeah.
extracting the information without being hostile, that is one
Yes.
of the things which is a you're always walking on a tightrope
Oh,
when
yes.
you're,
Oh, yes.
yes, when you're doing this. So so the challenge is that's one challenge. The second challenge is, if you're a journalist, every day you have to put your ear to the ground, not by sitting in some big officer's cabin and tell him, oh, so today what's the news, or asking the police traffic police, or what's the story today. No, but putting your ear to the ground, hearing to the community, and developing a network, so you get your stories with the contacts. I'll tell you, there were so many stories that I've done in Indian Express which had nothing to do with officers. I'll give you a very cute, not cute, yeah, I can tell you a cute example. So a reader called me, one morning, and
Huh.
said, we had published a story, a photograph of a
Mm.
racecourse horse. The racing season is on in
Okay.
Pune. The racecourse
Yes.
horse which had died on the tracks. So the
Mm.
next day, the reader called me and said that racecourse horse, which was the pride of the owner, he is being dumped into the Hadapsar garbage dump and cut into pieces by many people there. So these
Oh
are the
my God.
tribals who have this horse meat. So, I went with the photographer and, did that story, asked those, there's a particular community which does this. And then, I wrote a story on how a person becomes a high profile, a celebrity, because he has
Mm.
racecourse horses. And the reason why he became so high profile, it doesn't matter to him once he's dead. So when that story was published, at that time, first, the turf club denied it. Then after that, they accepted that there were proper, what do you call it, burial ground for these
Mm-hmm.
horses
Mm-hmm.
at that
Yes.
Hadapsar grounds. So today, also, if you go to see, they have completely made these burial grounds after my story. Okay, so this story is nothing great shakes, but the point that is that, it brought sensitivity to the people who were rich and could afford the horses, and brought some dignity to the horses, after their death. See, like that, like these, there are many stories where a journalist has to hear the reader. There are stories when readers send you letters. Now it is email. You need to read them. So, you have
Yes.
documents which come to your office. Somebody gives it to you. You need to read them. But unfortunately, today's journalists, I say, are they want everything on a platter. Even if they
Yes.
have, even if they have information right in front of them, they don't want to read it. Then you have the management. Now, when we were young, the editorial department and the marketing department were watertight compartments. There was no question. The editor, the newspaper was known by the editor, and today, it is known by the manager. And he influences you on which stories you shouldn't write, because you got this big advertisement coming in. Do you know that when I did my Dow Chemicals investigation, Initially none of the newspapers carried, because the Dow Chemicals had given one page newspaper advertisements to all the English and Marathi newspapers. And so when, although I conducted a press conference after having the documents, three reporters told me that the marketing department said, don't amcha potavar pie naka thiyu. So the story is about, when did this Dow story get published? When the villagers got hostile, when it became a crime story, when that whole little place was burnt. At that time, they woke up. Whereas mine was an investigative journalism for 10 months, for the reason why I won the Chameli Devi Jain Award. So
Devi
that's
Jain.
what I'm trying to say. That, that this is the challenge. You have to take on the establishment. Why are you here? Are you here to improve your profile? Are you here to say to your editors so that people get envious of you? I'm not even envious of any glamorous journalism. I'm very happy that I did not ever interview any Bollywood star. I have interviewed the common man on the street, and have got stories to improve the social infrastructure, the civic infrastructure, as a result of that little stories. And today, Right to Information Act helps you to amplify and do the stories even better and make a difference to the society that we live in.
Yes, absolutely, Vinita Jain. I think you've done a phenomenal job in the field. I think all of us watched Madhur Bhandarkar's movie Page 3, where a disparity between Page 3 journalism and crime journalism was shown, where Konkana was actually portraying Page 3 journalism, and Atul Kulkarni was actually portraying crime branch. So, how did that movie impact you? What was your reaction when you watched Madhur Bhandarkar's Page 3 as a journalist?
I don't call page 3 journalism at all. Page 3 is paid journalism. The Times of India started it, and they started a media net where they had a rate
Okay.
card that even if you wanted to come into your those flashy supplements, which is called page 3, even you and me can get in there. Just pay a few thousand rupees or perhaps a lakh. So that's
Okay,
not
okay,
journalism.
okay,
That is
okay.
it's an insult. You cannot call it journalism. Okay, this is just to garner money, to get big money, to get, it's like a competition in the newspapers, that are the A class readers reading me, the high profile Mukesh Ambanis and page 3s and celebrities. So you won't believe it that a young journalist today, journalists are very frustrated. So there was this young
Correct.
journalist who came to interview me because she was writing about women who are using right to information in this country. So I told her,
Correct.
why did you leave journalism? Like, you've just been like 5-6 years there. So she told
Hmm.
me that when she joined a particular big newspaper, which I don't want to name, that
Yes.
she was given an orientation by the marketing department
All
that,
right.
A is rich people, celebrities. B readers
Okay.
is upper middle class, middle class. C is
Okay.
lower middle class, and D are poor. So he said our target readership is A and B. Only
Okay.
if the A and B is impacted because of C and D, then only you can write a story. And then when she was in the night desk, and she published a photograph next day of the coolies who were on a
Hmm.
morcha or something,
The
she was
porters, cooling.
literally, yeah, so she was literally humiliated in the editorial department. And not only that, another young professional told me that in the night they used to get a series of photographs in the marketing department. This is paid for, you have to use this photo. So these are the kind of happening, and that are tarnished journalism. And just because one big media house started it, everybody followed. And that is the unfortunate part. Nobody is today, but today we have our internet newspapers. I mean, they are the ones that speak the truth. You see the print, Money Life, there are the Wire,
Money Life. You're the
Scroll.in.
consulting editor of Money Life and
That's right.
Corporate Citizen.
That's
I've
right.
been
Yeah.
reading. Yeah, I've been reading those.
So, yeah, so these are the guys who you do tell you the truth. They are not afraid. They are not dependent on, some damn advertisement, the company is not going to get 20 lakh rupees and 30 lakh rupees. So today that has become the mainstream journalism has become, sorry to say, but a side stream journalism, and the internet
Ah,
journalism has become the mainstream. If you want to know the truth, you've got to be there. You see
correct.
Barkha Dutt, her mojo.in. She just got out of
Yes.
every news channel, and she's the most visual channel. People just follow her. So
Yes.
today the technology has given power to an
All right.
individual journalist to pursue the truth, and
All
therefore
right.
journalism can never die. It's just going to become better. And any of the,
Yes.
today media is tarnished, and on the whole, like when you say prostitutes, even I'm a part of it. You're calling me a prostitute, right? When you say the in the social media abuse, prostitutes and this and that. Yes, that no doubt that there are television channels which are like working for the government for whatever motives that they have. There is no doubt about it. But people can read through the lines. People can read through the visuals. They are not stupid anymore. They will just go away from there, or they will, see it and say, "Oh, anyway, this is like trash. We know why they are doing it." So a reader cannot be fooled, because a reader
Absolutely.
always reads between the lines. And hence I feel bad that citizens, they brand everybody as, one with one gali, and that is rather unfair for hundreds and hundreds of journalists who are working today to get the news. I mean, you say that media is should be banished away or something. How are you going to get the news, good or bad? How are you going to get the news that even Narendra Modi is doing some good work? Unless and until it's amplified by the media, you're not going to know what the people in authorities are doing, good or bad. So people must
Absolutely.
remember that the media, the fourth pillar, is extremely important, and it is going through some bad patch, but it is going to recover, and it is going to question the establishment, and it's already there, or it'll die. Whichever newspaper or TV channel is going to fool the readers, it's just going to die its death, even if it is not really closed down.
Well, that's a bang on answer. But Vinita ji, whatever we watch these days is breaking. I don't know what's a palang news and breaking news. Anything and everything is breaking these days. Whichever channel we put on, that breaking news, in bold, it flashes. And, all the news channels feel that, they are actually catching the pulse of the audience and they are, like coming up with some captivating news. Even COVID related news goes viral in a matter of seconds. So, what do you mean by breaking news, Benita ji?
Actually, we have come a long way from the breaking news when it started with, all these private news channels came in. But today, breaking
Yes,
news is like a routine. It's like anything that is a news breaking, whether it is the COVID vaccinations having come from Russia,
anything
like
and
so,
everything.
that becomes breaking news. It has lost its sheen. I mean, breaking news, don't expect something exciting or something that is, going to hold you in the edge of your seat. No, every news which is new which is coming in, that is breaking news. So I don't think we should give too much importance to this breaking news. It has become run of the mill.
Okay.
So it's become something like this in the Indian Express. I remember my editor used to tell the photographers to get offbeat photos, but finally what happened, they used to just get these offbeat photos of some on the day of Holi, get some colorful pictures. So everything loses its sheen. The reason why it started, it has just fallen flat.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, all right. It's a very interesting answer. This is such an engaging conversation. Vinita, you'll be happy to know that a lot of viewers have joined us, and
Mhm.
they're actually finding our conversation quite, riveting, engaging, and absorbing.
I'm
And
so
you're so
happy, and
articulate.
thanks for your questions.
Okay, so my next question, Vinita ji, is narrate the time when you actually dealt with an uncooperative interviewee.
See, like I told you earlier, that every interview is uncooperative unless and until you're going to write beautiful things about him, right?
Okay,
So
yes,
in
yes,
this
yes,
Dow,
yes.
yeah. So in this Dow chemical investigation, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to speak to the chief of the Dow in India. All
All
right, and
right. Mhm.
he was placed in Mumbai. I sent an email. I sent, called up the communication consultant and requested for an interview. So after 2 days, he calls me back and tells me, madam, your intelligent Pune, I don't know. I mean, it's not like Indian Express. So, maybe you can wait for 8, 10 days, because that's the time it'll take for our manager to give the interview to you. So I told him, look, I'm the editor and I decide when I'm going to take the story. And if you're not going to give it today, then I'm going to write the story and say that we contacted you, but there was no comment. Okay. And that's what I did. So when there's two, if he's not uncooperative, so we have asked him, right? So I went with the story which had a lot of controversies and shocking revelations. Then after
Okay.
that,
Okay.
after that, their team came and complained to my editor in chief that Vinita Deshmukh is the only journalist in the entire India who's writing against Dow Chemicals factory, and everybody else is writing a good story. So my editor in
All
chief
right.
told him that you write down the points as to where she has given fake news or told false, and then she will take it up. And so that's how,
Correct.
that we deal with this. Like, we don't cow down to people who try to, when they are in the public radar and yet they don't want to give the information, we can do without them. We go ahead with our story.
Right.
And then
But
they get jittery because they don't know that what is published can go viral, and then they'll come, haunting after you.
absolutely. But how difficult it is when it comes to high profile cases, Vinita ji, because most of the cases are shelved. So, I mean, there must be some, restriction as far as high profile cases are concerned. So how do you deal with that as a journalist?
For me, there is no high profile person in India, because I don't go there as some Madam Vinita Deshmukh individual shaking in my legs because, he's Amitabh Bachchan or he's Amit Shah. No, I'm a journalist of a certain news of the Indian Express, and I'm getting information from the person who is in the power, because people have put him to power, whether it is the fans who have made a Bollywood star, whether it's the voters who have made a chief minister, prime minister. That person to me is an ordinary person. There is no high profile. You can after say this was a high profile case because that person was rich. That is different. But for a journalist, nobody is high profile. You are answerable, you are accountable, you have to be transparent to the public because you're holding a public office. So when you hold a public office, you have to get your bookcase and you have to get your brickbats too. You cannot say that, oh, just like do my arti and then all the dirty work I've done, shelve it down, I'll pay you some money. No, it's not like that. Good or the bad, they have to be exposed, and they to me are an ordinary citizen.
Absolutely. But, apart from being fearless and intrepid, do you still take precautions? Because a lot of research is involved, a lot of hard work is involved. So, do you take any precautions before actually going ahead with the news?
The only precaution you have to take is that what you have writing is facts. That's the precaution you have
And
to
not
take. You have to
fiction?
take
Yes.
precaution that you're not personally getting at somebody.
Maligning it. Yes, yes, correct,
No,
correct.
like, let's say, even if a minister, if there is a corruption case, you go by those documents. That's why I'm saying you again and again that, you have to go by the facts. You have to go by the certified documents that are from the government offices. You have to go by the interviews that you have taken, and you have to be careful, because our editor always said that when you point a finger at somebody, there are three fingers pointing at you.
Pointed
So
at
do
you.
you do
Yes,
you have the
yes.
ammunition? If today you write a story and tomorrow it's published, and that person contests, do you have enough ammunition to again 1, 2, 3 assault him with that information that you have? So that's what we have to we have to work like an army, like a military strategy, that the facts have to be short, it's like a gunshot, and then you have an ammunition ready if anybody is trying to tell you that you are a liar or you have giving fake news. That's just not tolerable for any journalism. Who is doing a good journalism, who's doing genuine journalism, this matters. So that's what we have to be careful about. You can't have haphazard facts and write a story. You might as well wait for a day or two till you get your facts right. That is very important. And once you have that, then you're just free to write, and free to write with language that is not rabid in a
Offensive. Yes, yes.
yeah, it has to be professional. Whatever you write, you can always uh, you know uh, get that truth to the reader and the person by using your profession journalistic language.
Very true. And lots of times, some, caustic and venomous comments are, heaped on journalists as well, because we live in a democratic society. So obviously, journalists are quite accessible to the masses. Even they get trolled, be it on Twitter and, on social media. So how have you handled the people? How have you handled these trolls, Vinita ji?
Yeah, I have not. I've been told sometimes, yes, but I don't
Yes.
handle them. I don't have to handle them. They can just do write whatever they want to, and if they just try
Does
to
it
get too
affect you?
vulgar.
Does it affect you?
No, not at all, because I know what I've written. And then the trolls write in such a language which is so, stupid, idiotic, sometimes vulgar. So if it gets too much, all you do is that block that person. So, and so this troll army is there, and you exactly know that, these guys are like going to get after you. So it just like, once I know, trolled very badly, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. You have to be ready as a journalist. You should be proud that you're getting brickbats, and no journalist can,
Correct.
you can get a bouquet, okay, through some award, and then you feel good, okay, my story has been recognized. But then this is life for a journalist. It is thankless. It is, tough. It is wild, and it never ends. It never ends. And every day, like, you just have so much tension, because you sure of the fact of the story, which story I want to write, all these kind of things. It is, you're used to your bile flowing all the time. You're used to your head getting tense all the time, and that you live through that. You live through that,
Yes.
and it like turns into constructive stress, and so you write better stories.
All right. So this is, I think this advice is going to work wonders for our viewers. You will be criticized. Horror will be piled on horror, but then you should keep your equilibrium, because that
Mhm.
criticism will always play a pivotal role in ameliorating your performance. So your performance is only going to improve with that criticism. I think that's a very, very valuable, it's a valuable piece of advice for our viewers also, Vinita ji.
Yeah.
Uh, on this note, can you narrate an interesting story? You work with Indian Express. You are, the consulting editor of Corporate Citizen, and you have several new journalists working with you. And I have observed that sometimes the language used by the young journalists, it gets casual with too many acronyms and too much of influence with, the cyber age. So how do you deal with the young journalists? How do you guide them?
Actually, like, my journalism is such that it is a very serious journalism. Whether I'm, editing the Corporate Citizens, where we have interviews of corporate leaders,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
stories related to the corporate, and whether it
Corporates.
is the Indian Express. So all the young
Yes.
journalists, they are disciplined.
Okay.
So yeah, and the first thing, that when I was in the Indian Express also, the first thing that is taught to the journalist, that even if you're writing a feature, it is not the flowery language. The flowery language is a must, because it gives a style, apart from a
Yes.
bare reporting which is clinical and just
Like a
gives you the bare
literata.
facts.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you get into a style, some language skills. That is okay, but that cannot be at the expense of facts, because after all, even if you're writing a news feature, it is something you're conveying in news. So generally, journalists who are working in serious newspapers, be it Money Live, Corporate Citizen, Indian Express, they are
Yes.
trained and they're disciplined in the way they write. Now this, what you're telling me, the page three kinds where you can have. I'm not totally criticizing the writers there, but what I'm saying is
Mhm.
that is a different kind of writing. So there you can
Okay.
have puffed up writing, have more
Mm.
style, have more flair.
Or
So these
gonna
are
be and
the,
wanna be and all the slang
yeah, yeah.
language.
So
Yeah.
that's like two
Yes.
different, yeah.
Yes.
Schools of
Yes.
journalism.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. There's something called yellow journalism. We have this phrase called yellow journalism, where
Yeah.
even casual, slang language is also, encouraged, and there's no problem as such. But I think language should also reach the crowd, because if you're using bombastic language
Yes.
or ornamental language, it doesn't really connect with the average crowd, because none of all of them don't have PhDs in, literature to, understand what's being written. So I think language need not be flowery. It needs to connect with the crowd. Do you agree with me, Vinita?
Absolutely, that's a basic tenet of journalism,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you are, you are approaching, rather, you're targeting a reader who,
Yes.
as you know, in a survey, nobody reads a newspaper for more than 7 to 10 minutes. So within that
Correct.
10 minutes, he or she definitely reads some 3 4 stories, and it has to just actually get into his head. For that, it has to be short sentences, simple language,
Crisp.
the
Precise.
most
Yeah.
important points in your intro, in your headline. So basically, a journalist has to write in a simplified language. That is no matter whether you're junior, senior, columnist, everybody writes in a language that is very easy for a common man to grasp within
To
those few
grasp.
minutes that he spends with the newspaper.
Absolutely. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Vinita ji, apart from RTI, what kind of news do you like to cover? RTI is your dominant passion, we all know, but our viewers would like to know what else are you passionate about when it comes to writing, when it comes to
So
journalism?
basically, I spent 2 decades of my life writing about public and civic journalism.
Okay.
Meaning, yes. So which means that at that time, when we started in the late 1980s and 1990s, public journalism was being done in developed countries like the USA, but it was extremely new to India. And I'm proud to say that our editor, the late Mr. Prakash Kardare, he was the one who started civic journalism and public journalism with the Indian Express Pune edition. At that time, we used to be like the reporters. You had to go. Pune was just bubbling into a kind of a IT city. It was already even the education city that was bubbling. So there were a lot of migrant professionals and labor force that was coming into Pune. So Pune was, breaking the shackles of a Maharashtrian bastion and actually getting to become a cosmopolitan city. And as
Yes.
the
The
city
central
grows
network.
in an unbridled manner, you know that the water supply, the electricity, there are so many garbage, there's so many problems that are not attended to, and these were never been written about. And Indian Express was the
Correct.
first one where we were sent to localities, knocking at the door of people, asking them what is the problem, and thus was born public journalism. And I just thrived in that public journalism for 20 years and thoroughly enjoyed it, because you write the story and it benefits a common man. When it benefits one
Absolutely.
common citizen, it benefits an entire locality, entire neighborhood, entire city. So you are actually being a true journalist, which is bettering the society by amplifying the voice of the faceless people who will be kicked and thrown around if they go to government offices. So that's the journalism I love most. And I've been doing that. And investigative journalism, of course, is my passion. And through Right to Information Act, first the journalist just had the power of the pen, as they say. But today the journalist has got two tools. One is the pen, now of course the keyboard, and one is the Right to Information Act. You can
Correct.
go to the government office under Section 4 of the RTI Act and demand files, because otherwise, you have to wait for 30 days for the reply. But you need not. You can walk into the office. I've done that for Dow Chemicals and everything. You get it right there, and the government office has to provide you the Xerox copies. So that is the power of the Right to Information Act, which now many
Absolutely.
journalists have started using, especially the young ones. I'm really very, very proud about that. Can I just give you one very interesting incident as to how I got
Absolutely.
interested into using RTI as a weapon for investigative journalism? So what happened is that again, the Indian Express Pune was the first. When the 2003 the Maharashtra RTI Act came, every Wednesday my editor used to have a full page explaining to people as to how you can use this RTI Act, and have a workshop also every once a week in the Indian Express office. So one day he got a letter. It was a beautifully written inland letter in English. Now it was written by a criminal in the Yeravada Central Prison who was serving a life sentence because he had murdered his friend.
Oh my
But
God.
because of his good mannerisms, he was shifted to the open jail. The open jail where you can lead a kind of a normal life.
Yes. Yes.
However,
Yes.
he led an agitation of bad quality food that is being served in the Yerora Central Prison. So the authorities thought that, he's just getting a bit too smart. So he was shifted from the open jail to the closed jail. So he wrote a letter to my editor saying that although I'm a criminal, I'm the citizen of this country and the RTI Act allows me to use the RTI. So he had used the RTI with the jail superintendent, asking him to give a copy of the Indian Prison Manual Act 1964 in order to see the terms and conditions of how a prisoner from the open jail can be shifted into the closed jail. So he told the jail superintendent, tore it to bed, saying that you're a criminal and put it in the dustbin. So my editor asked me to follow the story. And of course, when I called up the jail superintendent, went even the IG prison, when prison chief, when Helter Skelter made the RTI again, and within 24 hours gave him that copy of the manual. That day I realized that the power of the RTI Act is just tremendous. Whether it is the poor, the criminal, the rich, the middle class, anybody can get access to the information you want. And hence I started using it all the time to get my stories.
Amazing. Absolutely astonishing. That is absolutely astonishing. And I think being a criminal, he was aware of the law.
Yeah, because
I'm
you read,
flabbergasted.
yeah, he was educated and he was
He was
well read and
educated criminal.
and used to read the Indian Express Wednesday page specifically, So that was,
Wow.
really, really great, yeah.
Yeah. So, Vinita ji, I want to ask you something. Should journalism be alienated and estranged from public funding and commercial funding?
For the survival of a newspaper, that is not possible. Unless and
Print
until.
media. Print media.
Print media. Unless and until you're ready to pay 25 rupees for a new newspaper every day. You get it at a very subsidized rate. In our times it was 3, now whatever it is, 5 rupees, 8 rupees. So it is a very, very subsidized rate. And so, and the main expenditure of a print newspaper is the paper, the printing paper, which is extremely costly because most of it is imported. Only the imported ones are the ones, they are good quality. So 75% of the expenditure is because of the print.
Because of ads and funding.
No, the newspaper that you get to buy. So
all right.
So then you have to depend on advertisements. In you have to survive, you have to give a subsidized rate to the reader, you have to give salaries to your staff, then you definitely need. So the commercial aspect of it cannot be totally killed. It is not possible. However, this is where it becomes so vulgar. You have now day in and day out, you have on the front page, you have advertisements. That has become a habit now. People
full
don't
page sometimes. Full page,
full page. Yeah. So that it's gone to the other extreme where they unabashedly put these advertisements, where they put influence on the editorial department not to write these stories because of advertisement, and that is where the harm has caused. And like I told you, the reader is very smart. And today, Corona has even further propelled the readers just not to buy newspapers. They are all seeing it online.
That's what I was going to ask you, Vinita ji. Is print media going to be replaced by e-journalism? So will print media die?
No, I don't
with
think
virtual technology.
Not at the moment, not for some years for sure, because today in India still, I don't know, I've forgotten the percentage and the data, but there's a large amount of people across the country who are reading newspapers, and they have to have it with their cup of tea. It has become their habit. So definitely the newspaper must survive. It will survive, and only they have to be attuned. I always say that they need to give micro news, they need to give community news, because that's what you do not see in news TV channels. Like I want to know what's happening in my neighborhood, but I can only come to know through my local newspaper. I could not expect the India Today or somebody telling my story. No, so the newspapers have to be intelligent on how to change with the changing environment, and they are still a powerful tool in India, believe me. They're
Okay.
not going to die
All
so
right.
soon. Yeah.
All right. So print media will not die, says Vinita Deshmukh,
I'm sure.
journalist, absolutely intrepid, dauntless, and fearless. And she's someone who always calls a spade a spade. Thank you, Vinita ji, for enlightening our audience, our viewers. And I think the piece of information that you gave was extremely informative and educative. As we call it, boggling conversations, we did take up issues which are not generally talked about because even people are at sea. What we are reading, is it true? Is it authentic? And how authentic is it? So obviously, it came from the horse's mouth. And you narrated that absorbing story about the burial of the dead horse. So I think that was also very interesting and engaging. Thank you very much for coming on Boggling Conversation, and
Thank
we
you.
extend our heartfelt gratitude to you. It's been such a privilege, and you've been such a delight, Vinita ji. It is said that when a great scorer comes and writes against your name, it matters not whether you win or lose, but how you played the game. And today we had an excellent interaction with Vinita Deshmukh, the award winning journalist of India. And we are grateful to her. I will be back once again on Boggling Conversations. This is Dr. Purnima Kulkarni, your host, saying Shabba Khair, good night.